to remind you, if you send me anything about the summer project, by July 31st, I will look at it and review it and tell you anything you need to do to secure like 100 on the summer project. The things that I notice is, one, students not putting like the production possibilities graph and the circular flow graph in their notes. Graphs are probably the most important thing in econ, so I'd like to see graphs in your notes. The second thing is using Mancu's examples, and he's the author of the book, instead of your own. Mancu's like 82 years old. I mean, he uses guns and butter. I can't imagine that means anything to you. So I would suggest you use your own examples. And there's two, just, brain learning theory. When you use your own example, one, you tend to remember the concept longer. Two, you have a better comprehension of the concept. So try in your notes whenever possible to use your own examples. And the third thing is, I'm not going to allow you to use your notes, but you should think, if he gave me a quiz on chapter 1, would I get a 90% with my notes? If the answer is yes, you have good notes. Okay. All right. I'll put the chat box up here. And you could chat in, or you could turn on your mic if anyone has any questions on the summer project. Okay. And again, the summer project's intended for you to get 100. Okay. It's intended for you to get 30 out of 30. I would think, I'm guessing it's the easiest thing you'll do all year as far as a grade. All right. We're going to finally today, we're going to put supply and demand together. We might get to consumer surplus and choice. And man, if we get there, we're like at chapter 5 or 6. So we're rolling pretty quickly here. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. Normally, I'd have you talk to someone in class, but look at all these terms and see, like, could you answer this if I called on you? Not going to call on you. I'll probably just ask, is there anything you don't remember, and go over it. So look at these. I'll give you like 2 minutes to review, and then I'll ask you. Okay. If there's anything on there that you do not remember, just type in the chat and I will be glad to go over with you. And I'm sure there's something you don't remember, so feel free. Okay. The difference between all right, I'm going to answer first. The difference between quantity demanded and demand. A change in quantity demanded slides up and down the curve. It's caused by a change in price. A change in demand is shifting the whole curve. Okay, so a change in quantity demanded would be like going from $3 to $2. You would slide, say, down the demand curve. A change in quantity demanded would be income doubles in the United States and the whole curve shifts out. Does that make sense, Mr. Jenkins? Okay. All right. Lucas, shifters of supply, rat nest, resource prices. A resource price is anything that goes into making the product. So anything that goes into a shirt, the wages, the cotton, anything. Alternative production. What does that mean? I can produce shirts or hats. I'm going to produce the one that makes me the most money. So rat nest, I got resource prices, alternative production. T, technology. N, number of sellers. The more sellers, the more total supply. E for nest is expectations. S is subsidies. T is taxes. So let me go over rat nest again. Resources, alternative productions, technology, number of sellers, expectations, subsidies, which besides externalities shift supply to the right, and taxes, which besides externalities shift supply to the left. Anything else here? Okay. All right. We looked at supply. We looked at demand. Now we're going to put them all together. Here it is. Love and marriage. Supply and demand going together for 100 years. Never had an argument. So I'm going to have P and Q on my axis. I have a downward sloping demand curve. I'll label that D. An upward sloping supply curve. I'll have S. Where they meet is called the equilibrium. All right. At $3, quantity supplied is 30 and quantity demanded is 30. That is the equilibrium. Okay. So P and Q, supply, demand, S and D. There you go. Where they intersect is called the equilibrium. Quantity demanded equals quantity supplied. That's it. That's your start. Now, okay. What if the price increases to $4? So let's look. At $4, people are demanding, let's say, 20 shirts, and producers are supplying 40 shirts. So we have a surplus of shirts, right? People want 20, we have 40. So I'm going to give you, don't type in an answer here, give everyone a chance to think. And I'll count it down and then we can. So what do you think is going to happen to the price? Is it going to increase from $4 to $5, decrease, or stay the same? Don't type anything in yet. Increase, decrease, or stay the same. Give people like 30 seconds to think. All right, I'm going to count to 3, then you could put in your answer. 1, 2, 3. Increase, decrease, or stay the same. What's going to happen here to price? I've got a decrease. Anyone else? No one else wants to take a chance? I got a decrease. All right, decreases are rolling in. All right, it is going to decrease. All right, why? I have 20 extra shirts. I want to get rid of them. I can't sell them at $4. So I'm going to get down to $3, all right, where I can. All right, anytime the price is above the equilibrium, It is a surplus. All right. And you don't have to memorize that. You just look at the graph, right? Here at $4, people are demanding 20. I'm supplying 40. I have a surplus of 20. 40 minus 20. All right. All right. Any questions on that surplus? Okay. Now, what if the price is $5? Going to give you like 20 seconds, and I'm going to ask you, how much is the surplus? You know it's a surplus. It's above the equilibrium. I'm going to give you like 20 seconds. Don't type anything in, and I'll ask you, how much is the surplus? Okay. I'm going to count to 3. Type in how much the surplus is. 1, 2, 3. Go. What do we got? I've got some 40. I've got some 40s. Okay. All right. We're supplying 50 shirts. People only want 10. Surplus is 40. Okay. Good job. Now, what if the price decreases to 2? All right. Here at 2, notice what happens. People want 50 shirts. I only have 20. All right. I have a shortage. All right. It's a shortage of shirts because quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. So I'm going to give you like 15 seconds, and then I'm going to ask you, what do you think is going to happen to price in the long run? Increase, decrease, or stay the same? Don't type it in. Give everyone like 15 seconds to think. All right, I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3. What's going to happen to price in the long run? I've got increase. Yeah, I have like I only have 20 shirts. Everyone wants them. I might as well get more money for them. So I'm going to increase my price. So usually what's going to happen is we're going to get to the equilibrium. Okay. All right. Now we learned how to shift just demand. We learned how to shift just supply. Today, we're going to shift supply and demand together. All right. So the first thing before the change, draw our supply and demand graph. Second, label like either P, QE, P1, Q1, label the original graph. Read the scenario and then decide, is it rat nest or timer? Is it a supply shifter or a demand? Which determinant? Is it taste? Is it income? Is it resource? Is it alternative production? Did it increase or decrease after the change? Label the new equilibrium. What happens to price? Increase or decrease? And I'm going to leave that up there for a minute in case people are jotting it down. Then I'll go over an example with you. Then I'll give you some to practice on. Okay. All right. I'm going to come back to this. All right. Remember, everything is analyzing the hamburger market. All right. So let's do number one together. Price of sushi, a substitute, increases. I'm going to give everyone like 30 seconds, and I want you to tell me, is this a supply or demand shifter? Okay, I'll count to three. Type in supply or demand shifter. 1, 2, 3. What do we got? I've got demand. I've got demand. Okay, it is demand. It's timer, which is taste, income, market size, expectations, related goods. It's a related good, which is a substitute or a complement. Okay, good job. So here's where I'd start. All right, there is, before anything, I start always supply and demand. I actually should have a P and a Q on the axes. Well, it has quantity and price. Okay, I'd put P up top and Q. That would even be better. So there is, that's my start. I go back, price of sushi increases. Sushi is a substitute. I know it's a demand. If the price of sushi increases, less people are going to buy sushi, more people are going to want hamburgers. So the demand for hamburgers is going to increase. So I shift it right. Okay. I now have my new price and quantity, and then I put what happened to price. It went up. So I put an arrow going up. What happened to quantity from Q1 to Q2? It went up. And I put an arrow here. I shifted up and I put an arrow here. Okay. So now I've got price increased, quantity increased, demand shifted to the right. All right. So I'm just going to go over this process again. I start out with the original graph. And every time I'm going to start out with an original graph. I found out it was a demand shifter. I shifted demand to right. I put my arrows in and I'm finished. So if they ask me if the price of sushi increases, what happens to price or quantity in the hamburger market? I know price went up, quantity went up, demand increased. All right. I've got the chat box up. Is there any questions anyone has on this before we do the other practice ones? You could turn on your mic or you could type it in, whichever one you feel is more convenient. Okay. Now for 2, 3, 4, and 5, you start out each one by drawing that graph. And then depending on the situation, you either switch supply and demand and price and quantity changes. Okay. I am going to give you like 4 or 5 minutes to do them. Graph each one. Don't like take shortcuts. Get good practice in right now. Okay. And I'll be back in like 4 minutes and we'll go over. Okay, I'm going to come back. And I also should say, by the way, if you're struggling, don't worry. We're going to do this again in class, and we'll have a lot more examples. I'm always available to work with you out of class. So, you know, the idea of this is to like preview it. So when you see it again, you're a little more comfortable with it. Okay. All right. Let's go through these. New grilling technology cuts production time in half. All right. I'm going to count to 3. I'm going to ask you, is that a supply or a demand shifter? All right. Supply or demand shifter. 1, 2, 3. What do we got? Which one's shifting? All right. Everyone's hitting supply. That's true. It's the rat nest. It's technology. Okay. Now, is supply going to increase, decrease, or stay the same? I'll count to 3. Increase, decrease, or stay the same. 1, 2, 3. Increase, decrease, or stay the same. Type them in. I got an increase, getting another increase. Okay, it's going to increase. All right, so there it is. Supply is going to increase. All right. Now, this is price of sushi. Hold it. I'm on the wrong one. Sorry. There it is. Supply increases. There is my arrow to show the shift of supply curve. Then I look at price from P1 to P2. What happened to price? Price went down. I put my down arrow. From Q1 to Q2, quantity went up. So I've got a price decrease and a quantity increase at the new equilibrium. Any questions on that one? Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next then. Price of burgers falls from $3 to $1. All right. Is this a supply or a demand shifter? Supply or a demand shifter? Count to 3. 1, 2, 3. I've got a lot of demand shifters. Okay. I'll take from anyone who wants to put in, what in timer is the price of burgers fall from $3 to $1? Is it taste, income, market size, expectations, or related goods? Which one is it? Ross Weaver going with none. Income didn't change, Rocco. The price of burgers fell, but I'm not making more money. So income didn't change. All right, Lucas is now going with none. Okay. All right, it is none. All right. Just got to be careful about these. All right. So what is going to happen? There's my PE. I'm going to have price went down. I'm going to now have a shortage. Okay. No shifter. All right. Price of ground beef triples. Price of ground beef triples. I'll count to 3. You could tell me, is it a supply or a demand? Supply or demand? 1, 2, 3. Go. Type them in. Take some risks. If you're not sure, it's okay. That's how you learn. All right. We're knocking out supply here. It is rat nest. It is a resource. You need ground beef to make hamburgers. All right. I am going to shift supply left. Price up, quantity down. Okay. There's my arrow. There's my arrow. Okay. Human fingers found in ground beef. Demand or supply? I'll count to three. 1, 2, 3. Okay. It's going to be a demand, taste and preferences. People are not going to want to eat hamburgers because they found human fingers in them. So I'd go with taste and preferences there. And it's going to be demand shifting left, right? People wanting less hamburgers because people feel it's gross. So notice original was P and Q. I shift left, arrow down, P1 down, quantity down, Q1 down, arrows to show the shift left. Okay. Is there a question on any of these 5? I'm thinking of yours. Okay, Nico, it's good thinking. But when we do these problems, it's everything remains the same except the scenario. So they could say to you, human fingers found in multiple burgers and hamburgers or ground beef had to be pulled off the market. And then you'd have what we'll do a double shifter, but only respond to what's in the scenario. Okay. What you said is true, but that would probably be the next step. Did that make sense to you? The graph for price of burgers fall. Yes, I can show that. Okay. So you had PE and you should have QE. I just didn't put it there to get it too confusing. And then you put the price. So PE would have been like $3 and P would be $1. And you'd put the price of $1 going across. Okay. You're not going to have a shift there. You're going to have a change in quantity demanded. And then you're going to have a shortage because the equilibrium, the dollar is below the equilibrium. Is that what you needed, Luca? Okay. Anyone else with any of these? Good questions. Okay. Okay. All right. We're going to just try to do consumer surplus and see could we get that, like just basically a basic understanding. All right. If you have $200 and you're going to the mall to buy shoes, sneakers, what might happen at the mall? All right. You might see sneakers for $250. Are you going to buy those? No, you only have 200. And that's all you're willing to spend. Now, how about if you saw the sneakers you thought cost 200 for 180? Are you going to buy them? I'd say absolutely. You're willing to spend 200. Now you're spending 180. Okay. That's a good deal for you. Now, could that also be a good deal for the producer? Yeah, because they could have, it could cost them 150 to make those shoes, and now they're getting 180. So both of you benefit. And in what we call the voluntary exchange market, and all that is like going to the mall and doing what I said, both parties could benefit. All right. the consumer and the producer. All right. So consumer surplus is the difference between what you're willing to pay and what you actually pay. So in that scenario I just gave you, you were willing to pay 200, you paid 180. So your consumer surplus would be 20. Buyer's maximum minus price. Buyer's maximum was 200. The price was 180. Consumer surplus was 20. The difference between what you were willing to pay, 200, and what you actually paid. Producer surplus is the difference between the price the seller received and how much they were willing to sell it for. In that scenario, I said they were willing to sell it for 150. They got 180. Consumer surplus of $30. Okay. Consumer surplus, producer surplus. By the way, I don't think there's an AP test I've seen that doesn't test consumer and producer surplus. All right. I'll read this. It never gets a laugh from anyone except me. Calvin, I'd like you to pick up all the sticks and fallen branches in the yard so I can mow it. Will you pay me? Well, okay, I'll pay you $1. $1? I won't do it for less than 25. In a minute, you'll do it for nothing just because I told you to. I'll take the $1. Smart kid. Okay. You want to buy a truck, so you go to the local dealership. You're willing to spend $20,000 for a new 4x4. The seller is willing to sell the truck for no less than 15. After some negotiation, you buy the truck for 18. So first, I'm going to give you like 30 seconds. I want you to tell me the consumer surplus on this. I'll put up the chat box. I'll give you 30 seconds, then I'll count it off to 3. All right. 1, 2, 3. Consumer surplus is okay. I've got some 2Ks, some 2,000. It's 2,000, right? If I okay, the buyer's maximum 20,000. Well, there's the seller's minimum. The price. Consumer surplus is 2,000. All right, I'll give you another 15 seconds, and I'm going to ask you for producer surplus. Okay, 1, 2, 3, producer surplus. Okay, we got 3,000. All right. They were going to sell it for 15. They sold it for 18, 3,000. Notice consumers and producers both win. That's the voluntary exchange. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. 2 winners. Okay. Now, how do I graph? All right. Now, notice I have my supply and my demand graph. Consumer surplus is everything above the price and below demand. Why? Because this consumer was willing to pay 8 and they paid 4. This consumer, and I mean, it's out to the line and down like that. Those consumers were willing to pay 7, they paid 4. Willing to pay 6, they paid 4. Willing to pay 5, they paid 4. Willing to pay 4, they paid 4. All that is consumer surplus. Those people were willing to pay more than the $4. Okay. Now, producer surplus is below the price and above supply. And let's look at them. All right. This producer was willing to sell for 1, they sold for 4. Willing to sell for 2, sold for 4. Willing to sell for 3, sold for 4. Willing to sell for 4 and sold for 4. All those are producer. So graphically, consumer surplus is everything above the price, below demand. Consumer above the price, below demand. Producer below the price, above supply. That is every market, every situation, that above the price, below demand, below the price, above supply. All right. And like I said, in the AP exam, they love to quiz you on producer and consumer surplus. They love to force making you graph. Anything, questions on consumer and producer surplus before I move forward here for a couple of quick multiple choice questions? Okay. Let's move forward then. Oh, all right. So I'm going to give you a minute or two, and I'm going to ask you to give me in numbers, what is the consumer surplus and what is the producer surplus? So I'll give you 2 minutes to figure it out. Okay. I want, what is the consumer surplus and what is the producer surplus? And I'll give you 2 minutes to think about it. Okay. Anyone want to take a gamble on consumer surplus here? What's the number? If you feel you know it, just type it in. Come on, we have to have a risk taker out there. I like it. Someone 5, maybe 25. Any other guesses? 5. Okay. All right. Consumers are, and I appreciate those people who are willing to take a risk and put their name out there. All right. So remember, consumer surplus is above the price, below demand. So it is this triangle. If you remember somewhere in math, I don't know what level, they teach you that the area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height. And by the way, a lot of guys forget the half. All right. All right. So the base is 10, right? Because I start out at 0 and I go across here to 10. So the base is 10. The height is 10 minus 5. So that gives me 5. So 10 times 5 is 50, but it's 1/2 of that divided by 2 is 25. Okay. Anyone have any questions? Okay. I want to give you a minute then after going over this and letting you see, could you figure out producer surplus? I'll give you a minute. Oh. All right, Ben, give people a little more time and we'll see if you got it right there. Okay. Ben has 20. Does anyone have a different answer or the same answer? Let's see what you got. Type in if you feel you got an answer here. All right. There's an agreement. All right. People are agreeing with Ben. All right. Let's see. All right. So here's the triangle, right? I said it's below the price and above supply. Whoops, that one too. So the height is 5 minus 1, which would give you 4. The base is going to be 10 again. So 4 times 10 is going to give you 40. But remember, it's 1/2 base times height. So 40 divided by 2 is going to give you 20. Okay. Now you had consumer surplus of 25, producer surplus of 20. And if you added them both up, that would be total surplus, which would be 45. All right, any questions on that? I think this is a good place to stop for today. This is going to be the final session of the summer. All 4 are recorded. I truly appreciate the people who have come. I think when you see it in class, it's really going to benefit you. I think you're going to learn it a lot quicker coming around the second time. And I think it'll be a real big benefit for all you guys. I'll stick on the line for a minute if you have any questions on anything. Otherwise, have a great day. Remember, you could give me the summer assignment.